Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome into Guest Blade episode number 23. Today we're going to be experiencing a pretty damn awesome flipper from a buddy of mine named Kevin. He is a relatively new collector, but man, he has been amassing probably one of the most amazing collections that you've ever seen. If you want to see his collection, hopefully you're on Instagram. You want to follow, and I'll spell it out for you, KREVMAN 12, Krevman 12. The stuff that he's got is mind-blowing, and I actually have two of his knives. I have a Michael Birch Tangent that I'm going to be doing a little bit later on, and this one. So the focus of our video today is going to be on the David Mosier Crossfire. Kevin, thank you so much for letting me play with this. This actually came out of a little bit of fun. Alex Dietz was borrowing one of Kevin's Crossfires, and I kept seeing picture after picture after picture, and I'm like, oh man, I really want to get my hands on one of those. And then Kevin posted the picture of this one. And I was like, man, I thought I liked the other one a lot. I like this two-tone version even more. I said, would you be willing to send this one to me real quick so I can do a guest blade on it? And he's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, no problem. We talked on the phone a little bit. He threw it in a box and sent it right out to me. And I've actually had this for the better part of a week now, and I've done nothing but play with it over and over and over. I just can't help it. It's one of those knives that you want to play with. You want to flip it over and over. The quality of the build is, in simple terms, astounding. You know, when you think of it, it's not an overly intricate knife. And, you know, when we're talking about, you know, interlocks and we're talking about inlays and things like that, you know, this is relatively simple. Now, that's not to downplay the hard work that David Mosier puts into his knives. I'm just saying it's titanium on both sides with a blade in the middle, titanium lock bar, and that's it. It's machined out, it's milled out, it's beautifully done, but it's simply, you know, 3 or 4 main components here. But yet, it's the simplicity that I believe I've fallen in love with. That plus the incredible amount of machine work that has gone into this. David's actually been building knives since 1996, so he's certainly got all the experience. And what he's done, he's translated that experience into some really practical, everyday carry, tactical style knives. Now, he's got a whole selection to choose from. The Crossfire was the first one that really jumped out at me as, oh my God, I have to have one. Unfortunately, his books are closed right now. He's got a huge backlog and he's not able to take any orders. If you hit his website, every now and then, a knife will come up for sale, or he'll do a quick auction. He just had one recently sell for, it was this knife, but with a Damascus blade for a little over $2,000. And again, that's an auction style, so people were bidding it up more than what he would typically charge for it. And I gotta say, after handling this knife, this is one of the few in this style of knife that I would gladly pay over the maker's price. Now again, nothing crazy. You know, you're seeing knives out there right now that are $800-900 that are going for $5,000 and $6,000. That's just ridiculous. But I would certainly gladly overpay for a knife of this caliber. Let's get into what he's done here. Now, you got to realize everything David does, he does himself. It's all done in-house. All the CNC work, all of the heat treat, the grinding, everything. Nothing is outsourced. This is not a mid-tech knife. This is a full custom knife, and you can order from a variety of different ways. I mean, if you look at the different ones that are out there, the Crossfires that are out there, there's a million different handle materials and blade finishes and whatnot, so certainly worth a look. So we'll start here with the blade. It's got a really, really nice satin flat on there, and then you look at your top swedge and your primary bevel, and you've got a really nice stone wash on there. This is going to be great for hiding the everyday marks, cutting things here and there where you would normally get little scratches on a satin blade or a mirrored blade or any other finish. This is going to help mask that a lot. I do have to apologize for my finger. My new Medford Praetorian pinched me one day when I was opening it and gave me a little bit of a blood blister there. So I apologize if that's grossing any sensitive people out. But hey, we're all knife guys. We all have our little injuries. Here's my most recent little cut from the other day. The blade is fantastic. It's a great shape, great size. Not overly thick, so it's going to be a nice EDC knife. It's not going to be one of these crazy overbuilt tanks, but it keeps the knife nice and lightweight and allows it to rocket, absolutely rocket out of the handle. Great flipping action. You can rock back on it like I prefer to do, or you can kind of push button it. So it's one of the flippers that you can do both with. Nice amount of jimping there on the thumb ramp. He does angle it just a little bit to give you a thumb ramp, and very, very tactile jimping right there. So it's going to be very effective, yet not overly abrasive on your hands, which is a really, it's almost like an art. You can pick up some really great knives that the jimping is almost useless, or the jimping that does grip, it actually tears into your skin. This is a really nice balance between the two. And there is David's logo right there. The blade is very, very sharp. He does an excellent job of putting a good edge on his blades. Again, sometimes we take that for granted, and you would expect knives in this price range to always come sharp. After all, it's a knife. That's its primary purpose, is to cut. But we've all been there. We've all ordered knives or bought knives, and they weren't as sharp as we feel that they should be. Now let's take a look at the titanium. Incredible job. He's done a really nice texture through the lower portions of the frame, where all that's been milled out. This is obviously, these were obviously two very thick titanium sides that he's milled down quite a bit. Applied this great texture. It almost has almost a chalky feel to it from the bead blasting or sand blasting that he's done. I think it's more sand blasting than bead blasting. It's not as fine as bead blasting, and it feels fantastic. And then the raised portions, very smooth, almost glass-like smooth satin finish throughout. Nice clean lines all the way around. Big lanyard hole back there. Take a look at the lockup. Great lock geometry on this, by the way. This is going to be a nice, long-lasting knife. Great lockup, no stickiness whatsoever. Drops right in place. When we give it a nice hard fire, we'll see where it locks up. There we go. What is that? It's hard to see through my lens. That's probably about, what'd you say, 15%? Yeah, about 15% lockup on that. Every area is nicely contoured. There's no sharp edge anywhere on this knife, and we're seeing a lot of makers lately make that mistake right in here, right where your thumb has to disengage the lock bar. And we're seeing a lot of sharp edges on the knives that I've had in my hands recently. This is done to perfection. Another thing that I very much appreciate is the fact that not only are you getting a true custom clip, it's not a cheap standard spring clip, this is a fully milled, contoured, three-dimensional titanium clip, but he's also matched it to the shape of the frame, so it has a flow in the design that a lot of makers just don't seem to do. And he's actually milled in the same design and the same textures that he has in the rest of the frame. So there was a lot of thought that was put into just the pocket clip alone, which gives you an idea of how much pride that he must have in the making of his knives. Because a lot of times we see the pocket clips as being almost an afterthought to a lot of makers. And again, you can reference a lot of my previous videos and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's a high quality clip. I did put this in the pocket just once. I haven't used it or carried it or anything, but I did slide it in the pocket just to kind of get a feel for the clip. Great retention in a pair of blue jeans. Had no problem getting in and out, but it didn't feel tough to get in or out. There is the blade centering. Bingo, bingo, bingo. Nice tight tolerances throughout. He is using IKBS at the pivot, so you've got the loose stainless steel, the loose steel ball bearings. See if we can get a focus in here. There we go. You can see the lock interface there, where the lock bar is engaging the blade. He has finished everything all the way around, all the way throughout this knife, and done an excellent job at doing so. Again, that's another point of pride for a knife maker. When you can start looking at the areas of the knife that are not typically exposed, not on the exterior, and you see them applying finish work all the way through, then you know you've got a good high quality knife. I really like this flipper tab. It's a little bit unique. It looks like a shark's fin to me, but it's a bit of a unique shape. It's got just a little bit of a corner here, but you're really not engaging that much. You're really going to be putting the pad of your finger on the jimping right there. And it feels great. It's one of those knives that you can constantly flip over and over and over. And neither the flipper tab nor the lock bar give you any kind of irritation on your fingers. It's not a particularly rough knife to play with. It is incredibly smooth and very, very, very fast, but this knife is clearly not broken in yet. There's still a little bit of friction from the detent ball on the blade, so it has not gone through the finish and worn in a track yet. I would expect in a few hundred flips, a few thousand flips maybe, that this thing is going to get smooth as butter. Also, it's a dry pivot, so I'm not adding any lubrication to it. I guarantee if I added lube to it, I'd be able to drop this blade under its own weight within a couple of flips. But it's not my knife to go lubricating and going to play with. Some people prefer a dry pivot on bearings. Some people prefer it to be wet. Everybody's going to be different. I have certain knives I keep dry and certain knives that I do lube with my bearing pivots. It's just dependent on how that particular knife reacts. Everything about this is well made. Here's the detent. Not incredibly strong. It's just enough to suck in the blade. Let me do that on the hand with the hand that has no watch on it, so you don't hear any rattling. You've got a good amount of detent to keep it closed, a good amount of detent to apply a little bit of pressure on the tab to kind of preload the flipper. It's just a perfect balance. He didn't have to go with an insanely hard kind of detent like a lot of makers are kind of forced to do, because he's gotten everything else right on here. The geometry between where the flipper actually is to the pivot, the smoothness of the internals to keep the IKBS running smoothly, it's all done right. Now, there's one particular design aspect on this that I love above all else. Yes, I love this machining. I love the texturing. I really like the shape of the handles. I like the way the backspacer is integrated, although I'm not really a backspacer kind of guy. This one's done really well. There's one particular feature that stands out to me that I really, really appreciate. Now, you'll notice when the knife is closed, the flipper tab is, fairly prominent. It's not huge, but it's fairly prominent with that shark fin look. And nothing looks out of sorts. Look at the shape of this handle. Forget the flipper tab and forget the blade. Just look at the shape of the handles. Now watch this. You may not have noticed this right away. It completely hides the flipper tab when it's open. You've got this really great choil right up here, but you're not actually going to have the flipper tab hanging out. I've spoken to more than one maker about flippers, and a couple of them have said, flippers are great and I know people like them. I just don't like the aesthetics of your completed knife than a tab just hanging out of the bottom. He has done a genius thing here to completely cover that, but you don't really realize it at first. The first time you look at this knife, you don't even realize that you're not looking at the flipper tab. It's wonderfully concealed into this design. It's almost seamless, by the way. The way that he shaped this frame is in perfect match to the exact shape of that flipper. And it seems like a little thing, but it's really brilliant. Look how many flippers are out there and how many times you're staring at a flipper tab when the knife is open. I apologize, I bumped my tripod there. That's my favorite part of this whole design. It almost wouldn't matter what kind of handle materials what kind of sculpting was on it. That right there makes me want to buy this knife. Now, once you put this in the hand, you're really sold. It's a very slim knife, yet it doesn't feel flimsy in any way. It feels nice and stout. It's great no matter what position you're holding it in. If it were all satin titanium, it would be too slippery. But you've got just this little bit of texture in all the right places that keep it from being overly slippery. Again, back to the jipping. The jipping is effective. You can choke up on this. This does have a small choil. When your thumb drops off the thumb ramp, there's that slight depression there that happens to be just the perfect size and shape to rest your thumb on for the more fine cutting tasks that you might have. Overall, I'd say if you ever get a chance to own one of these, you must jump on it. I've been looking and looking and looking and looking, and the few that have sold, I've missed them. I didn't get a chance to buy them. I am absolutely going to be on the search for one of these. I'm going to be going to the New York Custom Knife Show this weekend. It's coming up in just a couple of days. Unfortunately, I don't think David's going to be there, but I'm certainly going to be on the lookout for anybody that's selling or trading, that's kind of walking around the show that might have one. That's one of the very few knives I have in my head that's at the top of the list, that now that I've seen it, now that I've played with it, now that I've experienced it, I do need to own it. There are a lot of knives out there that follow this basic formula that you see in front of you, but they lack the little details that keep them from being a great knife. They may be a good knife, but they keep them from being a great knife. Everything was so well thought out here, from the finish work and this great two-tone look to the way this was strategically milled, where it actually just feels great in the hand, to covering that flipper tab, giving you a very modular look throughout the entire knife. Having the lanyard hold, yes, that's a big deal for me. I want to have the choice to put a lanyard on my knife or not. I don't want to be told, no, I can't, because there's no way to attach one. I love the shape of the blade. There's a good amount of belly here for cutting. It's got a really nice tip on it, nice and prominent. It's going to be good for piercing as well. It's a strong lockup. When we take this, we disengage it. There is no play in the pivot side to side. When we get this flipped open, there's just no movement in any direction. It's a slim, easy carry knife that doesn't feel weak or cheap. He's obviously put a lot of thought into this and put a lot of time into making it. And now it's very easy for everyone to understand why David Mosier's stuff is so sought after. Listen, there is a sea of makers out there these days. Whether they've only made one model of knife so far, or they've been in the business for 30, 40 years. There's a lot of great makers to choose from. And sometimes when you're just looking at an EDC tactical carry knife, a lot of it blurs together. And it's hard to pick out the real gems, whether you're looking at pictures, even watching, videos like this on YouTube. It's hard to pick out the real gems. Once I saw this finish and I fell in love with it and begged Kevin to send it to me, I was so glad when I got it in my hand, because now that I've felt it, I realize it is definitely one that I've got to have in my collection. And I'm changing the way I'm collecting. And I'm going to be discussing that in a future video. I'm not going to be just buying from anybody. I'm not going to buy from the flavor of the day. I'm not going to buy what all the cool kids are buying. And I'm moving my way up into much more expensive knives. I just placed my order with Stan Wilson. That's a nearly $5,000 knife. But if you've seen the video that I put up of me in Stan Wilson's shop and him dissecting one of those knives, you understand where those prices are easily justified. So for me to still sit here, while I'm in that frame of mind, to still sit here and go, I absolutely must own one of these, I hope that's a clear indication to everyone watching just how nice this really is. So I've already told Kevin if he ever parts with this, I call dibs on it. I want this like you can't even imagine. It's been a long time since I've wanted something this badly that wasn't like, utterly ridiculously expensive. So anyway, Kevin, again, thank you so much, my friend, for sending this out. To David Mosier, who's probably never heard of me or my channel or will ever watch this video, if you were to stumble across it, thank you for creating what I think is the answer to a question a lot of people have had. Can I have a smaller sized, slim, easy to carry EDC in high quality that actually has some artistry to it that I don't have to drop $2,000 on, or have to bang my head against the wall to get a maker to do the things that I want to do, like not put a cheap spring clip on an otherwise beautiful knife. This was just done well. Great balance, great feel. Overall, it's a winner. All right, guys, I'm going to go for now. I'm going to try and knock out a video or two more tonight and get some uploads done before I head out to the New York show. For those of you that are going, I will see you there. I'm excited to meet you.